How to register a business step by step. So once you have decided on the business idea that you would like to pursue, then it's time to get it set up. And listen, okay, you don't need an attorney, you don't need an accountant, anyone can register a business. In fact, it is a simple process that can be done online in most cases. So in this video, what I want to do is share with those who haven't registered their business yet exactly what documents are required to register a business, the typical step-by-step filing procedures, and applying for your ID numbers, permits, and licenses that you may need. And if you watch this video until the end, I believe you will have a complete understanding of how to register any business. Now, before I dive in, let me briefly introduce myself. Hey there, I'm Sean, self-made millionaire and entrepreneur, and right now I'm on a mission to help people start, fund, and grow their business. Hey, if you enjoy this video topic, please show your support by liking and subscribing to my channel. It does a lot to help me grow, and if you do, please leave a comment down in the comment section below so that I can personally reply and thank you. All right, let's dive in with the first step. Number one, do you even need to register your business? So here's the deal. In some cases, you don't need to register a business. For example, if you plan on using your legal name, then you can start your new business immediately as a sole proprietorship without registering with your state. And if you don't want to use your legal name, then you could also get a DBA or a doing business as by filing a form with your local county clerk, again, without registering your entire business. However, you will typically want to register your business with your state if any of these scenarios apply. Okay, if your company has a physical location or presence in that state, if you meet with your clients or employees frequently in that state, if a significant portion of revenue comes from that state, and if many of your employees also work in that state. Plus, there are many other pros of registering a business, such as legal benefits like limited liability protection and tax benefits like changing your tax election. And I personally always register my business for those reasons. But what should you register as? Let's talk about that a little bit more. And number two, business structures. So before you file your papers with the government, you'll want to decide what type of business entity structure you want to establish. Now, there are several business structures to choose from, and I'll quickly go through them, highlighting the major pro and what is required. So the most popular business structure that anyone in the United States can register as is an LLC, or a limited liability company. The major pro of an LLC is that it offers limited liability protection for your personal assets. So to officially register this entity, you'll need two types of documents. Number one, the Articles of Organization, which is a simple document that describes the basics of your LLC, like the company's name, the address, the members who are associated, and the registered agent. Typically, you can create and file this document with an online application, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Now, the second document you need is number two, an operating agreement. Now, in some states, this is mandatory, and in some states, this is completely optional. But I think an operating agreement is wise for every single business to have because, okay, this document describes exactly how your business will operate, like how key decisions are made and the responsibilities of each member and the process of adding new members and so on. So it is highly recommended to create one to protect yourself and your business, even if your state doesn't require it. Now, you can easily create an operating agreement and many other agreements by using a free template from Law Depot, which will walk you through step by step of everything you should consider including in your agreements. Now, another type of business structure you could set up is called a limited partnership, or an LP. In this structure, there is a general partner and then there is a limited partner. Now, the major pro of an LP is that it can easily partner with investors who want to remain passive or limited partners while also having limited liability protection. Which, by the way, right now in July of 2022, I am looking for a partner in my tax firm who is a CPA or EA. So tell me down in the comment section below if you know anyone or if you would be interested. Anyway, the major con inside of an LP is that the general partner does not have any personal legal protections. Now, to officially register this business entity, you'll also need two types of documents. You'll need a certificate of partnership, which is something similar to the LLC's articles of organization, where you provide basic business information. Again, the company's name, the address, and the partner's name. And then the second type of document that you may need is called a partnership agreement, which is a binding agreement between all the partners associated with the business about how it will operate, which again is very similar to an operating agreement found or associated with an LLC. And listen, I've had my issues with partnership agreements in the past, and because of this, I would personally highly recommend having a partnership agreement, even if your state doesn't require it, because, okay, the last thing you want to do is start making millions of dollars but feel like you are not treated fairly inside of your partnership. Once again, Law Depot has some really great partnership agreements that tell you exactly what you should consider having. Now, another type of partnership is called an LLP, or limited liability partnership. This structure is usually great for professional services companies like law firms who don't want to be held liable for any of their partners' problems or issues. So for this, you'll also need a certificate of partnership, and you may want to have a partnership agreement to register this structure as well. Now, the last structure I want to make sure I cover is a corporation. Now, the major pro of a corporation is that it is a standalone entity, meaning that it has complete separation from the individual business owner, and it even has its own tax rate called a corporate tax rate. Now, to register a corporation, you'll also need two types of documents. Number one, the articles of incorporation, which is a document that lays out your company's name, the business purpose, the numbers of shares issued, the value of those shares, and the board members like the officers and directors. The second document you may need is number two, corporate bylaws, which states how the corporation will be governed internally, such as the shareholders' duties, powers, and responsibilities. Again, not every state requires corporate bylaws, but it is highly recommended to have them. So those are the four most common business structures, the major pros, at least in my opinion, and what documents you'll likely need to register. However, I have an entire video called How to Start a Business where I break down each entity in a little bit more detail, so check that out if you want to learn a little bit more. For now, let's move on to the third part of this video with number three, how to register a business step-by-step overview. Now, every business will operate at the federal level and at the state level. Let's talk about the registration process for both. So when it comes to registering with federal agencies, guess what? Most businesses actually don't need to register. Typically, the only thing you will need to apply for is a federal tax ID or an EIN. Now, if your company needs a trademark for the business name or logo, then that process does happen at the federal level with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. But this is something that you would do after you have registered your business. Now, let's talk about how to register your business at the state level. This is typically done with the state's Secretary of State's office, a business agency, or a particular business borough. So, step number one is to visit your state's website. On their website, there will either be A, an online application process, or B, instructions with a mail-in application process. From there, you can easily follow the specific instructions, which is usually to move on to step number two and do a business name search. So most states have an online tool that allow you to search whether or not a business name is available. So before you begin the application process, you'll want to make sure that name is not taken. Now, I'll also have a video on how to name your business with my best practices, so make sure you be on the lookout for that video coming soon. Moving on to step number three, begin the application process and provide basic business information. The state needs to know the business name that you have settled on, the business structure you will have, the location you will operate in, and so on. And so this document goes on what we talked about earlier, those articles of organization, incorporation, or your certificate of partnership. Once that is done, then you can move on to step number four and provide personal owner information. You'll still have to make sure the state knows who owns the business. So that state may require stuff like your personal name, your first name, last name, your email address, your phone number, your social security number, and so on. After that, you move to step number 5 and list a registered agent. Now, this is the part that trips up most people because many people think they need a separate party to be their registered agent, but okay, the registered agent is simply the person who receives official papers and legal documents on behalf of the company. And guess what? That can be you. I'm personally the registered agent on several companies that I have started, which is something that I actually prefer. But okay, if you are super busy or prefer someone else to handle all your legal matters, then it is definitely fine to list someone else or a third party as your registered agent. Now, after you finish this, you'll likely end up at step number 6 in paying your filing fees. Yes, the state is going to want a fee to process your new business registration. In most cases, this fee will be less than $300, but the fees do vary from state to state in the business structure that you set up. After you pay your registration fees, usually after a few weeks, you'll receive your certificate of organization, and then congratulations, you have officially registered your business. But before you start operating, there are a few more things you may want to take care of, so let's talk about that in number 4, Federal and State IDs. Because another important step in making sure your business is official and ready to operate is to apply for your federal and state identification numbers. This is also known as an employer identification number, or EIN. They basically work like a personal social security number, but for your business. You will use your EIN number to file business tax returns, pay employees and withhold taxes, apply for business bank accounts and loans, and much more. And look, getting a federal ID number or EIN is free and easy. In most cases, you will simply go to the IRS website, search for the EIN application, complete a very simple application, and usually within 24 to 48 hours, you'll have your business EIN number. The process for getting a state ID number is very similar as well, but in most cases, you only need a state ID if your business is required to pay state taxes. And this is something that I didn't have to do until I hired my first W-2 employee and put them on payroll, because at that point, you are required to pay state taxes. Now let's talk about number 5, licenses and permits, because depending on the type of business you start, you may be required to obtain specific licenses and permits before beginning operations. For example, to sell alcohol or import gun ammunition, you need special local permits. Now, figuring out which companies require different permits and licenses isn't always obvious, so I recommend using the SBA's Permits and Licenses website to find out which ones that may apply to you. All right, now remember, don't let registering a new business intimidate you. Simply following the instructions in this video and the instructions on your state's business registration website will be enough for you to start almost any business. Coming up next, I have 2 more business videos you may enjoy as well, so check those out if you haven't already, and I'll see you over there.